Testing 1 2. Check 1 2 2 2. Podium microphone check test.
I'm on the north side of Siesta Drive. She's on the south side of Siesta Drive. Hey, Rod. I haven't seen you in
Good morning, everyone. I'm Janet Ginn, the president of Pines of Sarasota Foundation, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to Wit and Wisdom 2020. For the past 11 years, we've come together at this event and enjoyed one another's company and the camaraderie that comes with fellowship and a shared purpose and passion. This year, Come Together has taken a very different meaning for all of us. We wish more than anything that you could be right here in this room with us, and that we would be together, all of us united. But we are so grateful that you have joined us virtually and in spirit. Thank you for joining us and taking your valuable time to sit with us today. You'll notice throughout our time together that I will be taking some measures to ensure that everyone stays safe. It's just the sign of the times and where we are at this moment. There are 3 people who are in person here with me today, our wonderful panelists, Mary Braxton Joseph, Rod Hirschberger, and Betsy Mitchell. Each of them has a story to tell, and I am so excited to be able to listen and learn and be inspired by them. As always, we offer our sponsors and thank them for the support and generosity and commitment that they have given us. In particular, our platinum sponsors, McIntyre, Elwell, and Strammer General Contractors, and Mrs. Marilyn Schumann. Our gold sponsors this year are BMO, Gulf Coast Community Foundation, Public Supermarket Charities, Joan and Larry Reinbach, Ruston Luxury Homes, Kathy Ruston, John F. Swift Construction, John F. Swift Family Foundation, Synovus, and the Charles L. Wackerly Foundation. All of our generous sponsors are listed in your program book, which I hope you received electronically and have had a chance to look at. We are so grateful for each and every one of them and each and every one of you. We are also grateful for the Kiwanis Foundation. The Kiwanians have been a part of the Pine story from the beginning, and as they have in the past, have generously offered to match each Wit and Wisdom donation up to $10,000. And I'm also sure, like me, you are thinking of our residents and staff at Pines of Sarasota. Our hearts are with them each and every day. It is my great privilege to work with Pines President and CEO, Mike Ward, and I am thrilled to invite him to the stage now to say a few words to you today. Mike?
Thank you, Janet. Thank you to our donors, our supporters, our board of directors, and our Sarasota community. All of you lift us up each and every day in many different ways, and we appreciate you so much. Thank you. Today, I have an important message I want to share with you. A message of opportunity, a message of excitement, a message of commitment. My message is Pines of Sarasota is alive and well. And now there is no doubt that this has been a challenging year for all of us. For all of our nearly 300 employees, our residents and their families, and I'm sure for every one of us. But as always, Pines care for our residents comes first. Our mission continues to be our focus. First and foremost, our mission is to care for those who can no longer care for themselves, for those who have outlived their financial resources. Our mission is alive and well. We have a 72-year history with this mission, and we intend to carry it forward and preserve the mission well into the future for at least another 72 years. Our mission is the fabric of Pines of Sarasota and the reason that we are here. As difficult as this year has been, I still believe that challenges will bring new opportunities. The Pines of Sarasota team, our caregivers, our support staff and managers have proven that we can face even the toughest challenges and continue to serve our community and provide great care and services to our residents. Even during these difficult times, I couldn't be more excited for Pines of Sarasota, and I want you to know how committed we are for the journey that is ahead of us. My dedication, our dedication, is as strong as ever. We are Pines strong, and Pines has a future that is bright and a future that is exciting, with purpose and vision, a vision of transformed campus. With the support of our board of directors, of Janet, the Pines Foundation, and our senior leadership team, this transformation, the transformation of the Pines of Sarasota campus, is happening right now. I watch it unfold outside my window every day, and let me tell you, is it an awesome sight to see. The construction of our new nursing center is well on its way. This brand new, fully funded building is replacing several buildings on our campus that are more than 40 years old, so that we can provide the very best state-of-the-art rooms, equipment, and comfort for our residents. Each room will have a private bath and a private shower. Indoor and outdoor atrium areas are planned. The memory care area has been carefully designed to accommodate the needs of our residents who have dementia. And its atrium will be one of a kind, setting the bar at a new level in healthcare for dementia care programming. Our inpatient and outpatient rehab services and therapy gyms will be places where residents go to progress and achieve to a level that ensures their very best quality of life. In fact, the entire building was designed to provide the very best in quality life for our short-term patients as well as our long-term residents. And that is what is so exciting. All of this work is being done so that we can continue to provide the very best in care, Pines of Sarasota compassionate care that we have been known for all these years to people who need our care the most. When you need our care, we will be there for you. We will have your room ready when you are ready. You know that you can count on Pines of Sarasota to deliver the very best in care. Finally, I thank all of you for the support shown to Pines of Sarasota. We are committed to our original mission, a mission founded by the Kiwanis Club 72 years ago, that we continue to honor today, to offer individuals with a fulfilling life in rehabilitation and senior care community. We pledge to take that message well into the future, the bright future of Pines of Sarasota. And I'm honored and grateful as the CEO to lead this team into that bright future. Thank you, and God bless everything that you do for us.
Thank you so much, Mike. We are so grateful for your leadership of Pines, especially during these difficult times. It has required strength and dedication, and not to mention those countless sleepless nights that you've had. You and your staff have more than risen to this challenge, and we are truly grateful for your leadership and all that you have done this year. It's always exciting, and I look forward to the time when I can come to Wit and Wisdom and have the opportunity to share with you our hopes and our dreams. But I have to be honest with you that as I thought about talking this year, I have to admit that I struggled. I struggled on what to say to you. At our last Wit and Wisdom, none of us could have imagined what this year would bring. I know that you have faced many unexpected challenges, just like we have. And I think that we are all probably wondering what our future holds. But here is what I hold on to. Here is what I have in my mind when I am feeling uncertain. Life is precious, and we're all in this together. There's something else that I always am certain of, without any hesitation. Pines of Sarasota residents are loved. That ensuring their dignity is our sacred duty, that their well-being is our highest priority, and that caring for them isn't just what we do, it is who we are. As I watch Pines of Sarasota staff come to work each and every day, especially since March, I'm often reminded that sometimes the simplest things, like getting up in the morning and going to work, requires the greatest strength and the deepest dedication. But our staff have been there. In this year, when it has been so clear to all of us that our cherished seniors are amongst the most vulnerable, Pine's commitment to our residents have never wavered. At Pine's, life is indeed precious. Pine's mission is and has always been to care for seniors with skill and compassion and to ensure that residents can stay at Pine's even when the cost of the care they require eliminates a lifetime of savings. That mission hasn't changed. In fact, it is even more important and more necessary today. Even in these extraordinary times, our neighbors and our friends continue to encounter challenges that come with age and illness, and the residents of Pines continue to need care and love and assurance that they will not have to leave when their funds are depleted. They will not have to leave their home at Pines. It's so hard to put into words the enormity of that purpose, to imagine how difficult and how desperate it must feel to be elderly and in bad health and be told that you have to leave the place that you have come to know as your home, and this year, the place that you have come to know as safe, or to be a son or daughter or spouse and be told that you have to find a new home for someone you love so dearly. With your help, Pines of Sarasota Foundation has been able to make sure that never happens at Pines. In the past years, I have shared with you that 50 or 60% of Pines residents are without resources and are dependent on Medicaid. But this isn't just any year, is it? This is the year of the pandemic. Today, the number of Medicaid residents at Pines is 85%. Not 50, not 60, but 85%. Candidly, during COVID, those with means or in the need of less care or who have families have been able to go home. Those that remain or who have joined us this year need Pines more than ever. Pines is their home, and we are their family. which presents us with a greater challenge than we have ever faced before. You know that Medicaid doesn't pay what the care cost, and that ensuring Medicaid residents stay at Pines continues to put a shortfall on our budget. Well, because of COVID, that shortfall has grown, and we need you now more than ever. As Mike shared, the irony of this is our future is bright. A year from now, our new skilled nursing building will open and be ready to welcome our community seniors. Not just a state-of-the-art facility, but designed with light and comfort and safety and beauty. It will provide a home for those with dementia, for those needing short-term rehab or illness or surgery, or those who need full-time skilled care. But between now and then, we need your help to ensure Pines can be here for our community when that new building opens, and that Pines can continue its historic mission. As I look forward to hearing our panelists' stories today, I am reminded of an important truth. Life will always present us with challenges. What matters is how we respond. In these unprecedented times, it would be easy to lose hope, but we remain hopeful. It would be easy to be discouraged, but we are optimistic. It would be easy to stand still, but we keep moving forward. We will rise to this occasion, all of us together, because we have to, because life is precious, and because so many people are counting on us. I hope you will join us. I ask you to help us, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for your generosity. If you would like to contribute to Pines of Sarasota Foundation, you can go to our website, pinesofsarasota.org, and click on the donate button. If you prefer to contribute by mail, remember your check should be made to Pines of Sarasota Foundation. You'll find the foundation's address on the website or in your Wit and Wisdom program book. On behalf of everyone at Pines, we sincerely thank you. And thank you for joining us today. And now it is my pleasure to welcome our moderator, Ray Collins. Ray anchored the news for 15 years on Fox 13 News, Tampa Bay, and later ABC 7. Ray is now a licensed real estate agent for Coldwell Banker Realty, and through the Ray Collins Media, he continues to specialize in media counseling, video production, and travel writing. I am pleased to welcome Ray Collins to the stage, along with our Wit and Wisdom panelists, Betsy Mitchell, Rod Hirschberger, and Mary Braxton Joseph.
Thank you, Janet. Certainly an unusual year. We certainly are glad that the Pines held the event after all. Very important fundraiser for the Pines. And also thank you for supporting the Pines by watching today and also being generous in your gift, ideally, toward the Pines for all they do for our community. You know, I look forward to this event every year. It's my honor to meet three panelists who are so interesting, and I feel like I meet three new friends every year. I get to study their success and learn all about them before the event, and then we finally are here to hear about their actual stories. And everyone's got a story, all of us out there. This year, we're going to hear about a young lady who lost her father at a young age and still wanted to be the first female president. A young man who built an amazing career, only to almost lose his life a few years ago in a boating accident. And another woman who refused to let a physical challenge hold her back. We're going to meet Mary Braxton Joseph on the far right, Rod Hirschberger, and Betsy Mitchell closest to me. So we'll begin to the far end of the stage here, and I'll try to shout because we've got plastic between all the panelists as well. It's an unusual year, but Mary Braxton Joseph, born in Plainfield, New Jersey, mother and 2 sisters, a father initially. Tell us about your childhood.
It was idyllic in the 50s. I remember when we bought our house. I remember when we got our first television. I remember our first Christmas, and then tragically my dad passed. He had a cerebral hemorrhage, and that left my mother. I was 7, and my younger sisters were 2 and 10 months respectively. So it was tough. I don't know how my mother managed it, but she made sure we stayed busy. Her motto was, if idle hands are the devil's workshop, he'll get no play here. So she kept us busy. I played an instrument. I played the clarinet, the bass clarinet. I took baton twirling. I was always in band school during the summer, and during the year I was taking college prep courses, etc. She made sure we were busy. To this day, I have trouble relaxing because I feel like I should be doing something every minute of the day. But it does, when you lose a parent early, it does shape your life, and there's no getting around it. We loved our dad dearly, but was not meant to be. So I think in many ways that shaped my sense of fair play. My sisters were very close in age, and they taught me equity and fair play because I used to babysit a lot. My mom taught me perseverance, never give up, strive for excellence, and I have to say I ended up going to college and pursued a career in broadcasting, and so I think she done good.
Well, apparently so. It really did put an early onus on her, and you've told me that she was probably the biggest influence in your life.
Absolutely. She was definitely the biggest influence, and yeah, again, when you lose a parent, you have to step up, and I was the eldest, and so I remember helping her pay bills in the late 50s. I remember getting those checks from the government. My dad does Social Security. He was a veteran, so he got VA benefits and he got civil service benefits because he was a mailman. And to this day, I'm indebted to the folks who run our government, because had it not been for someone in Washington, D.C., we might have perished. It was very important to have those checks come in a timely manner. And living in New Jersey, oil heat was the biggest expense. So I remember sitting down and helping my mom add up the numbers, and she really made, how can I say it? She could get blood out of a turnip. She figured out how to make things work. We always had food on the table. We had a roof over our head. We considered ourselves very, very lucky.
Well, we'll talk to you more in a moment as we start to hear how your life went from there. It's very exciting. We'll go to Rod now, who was born in Dover, Ohio. He was the 3rd of 6 children. And Rod, you had to move around quite a bit as a child, didn't you?
We did, and before I get into that, I just want to thank you for inviting me today. I feel like the proverbial thorn between 2 roses, but it is an honor to be here, and I would love to just listen to these ladies' stories all day long. But there were 6 of us kids, and my dad he wanted to be a missionary, and he went to Bible school in Canada, and so we lived in Western Alberta for about 5 years, between 4 and 5 years. And you really learn the meaning of cold when you live in Western Canada. We were on the cold side of the mountains. British Columbia is a little bit warmer, but we didn't have a lot of money. We worked hard, so I can understand Mary's stories about how important it was to work and how important it was to have a job and how important it was to do chores and learn to be part of that family and really do a lot of things to help the family out. Because with 6 kids, obviously, and your parents going to Bible school, there wasn't a lot of money and there wasn't a lot of things to go around. And but we had each other, and I think that influenced me for the rest of my life. The relationships you build, even from the time you're a small child, that you keep building on until you're an adult, really take you places in life. And those are some of the most important lessons learned, is how do you build on those relationships, how do you honor those relationships, and how do you make sure that you keep them solid.
Funny how you're learning lessons when you least expect it sometime. We'll go down now to our final panelist, Betsy Mitchell. She and I have something big in common. We were both born in Buffalo. She left, I didn't say escaped, when she was 9. And Betsy, your life changed at that point because of your parents, did it not?
lived there. I still don't know why, but it was a big change from growing up in Buffalo to going to an international school with kids speaking different languages, different backgrounds, different countries. It was classes were mostly in English, and then we learned French every day. And I was there for 10 years. And every summer we'd come back to the States and actually up to Canada. Rod, you mentioned Canada as well. And spend summers up in Canada and then go back to Switzerland. And we lived up in the Jura Mountains. So it's a bit of a drive every day, about half an hour to outside Geneva where the school was. And it was very interesting. I really came to appreciate all the different countries and all the different foods. I was a day student until 11th grade. I had an accident when I was 17 on the trampoline at school during gym class. And that ended up, I was in the hospital for several months, including my 17th birthday. And so I kind of had to readjust. I enjoyed sports and skiing, and I readjusted and finished off the last 2 years of that school as a boarding student. And in that way, I got to know more of the students from other countries. We had a lot of Iranian students at the time. We had some American students whose parents worked for oil companies in Saudi Arabia, so they were American. But and then coming back to the States, I was American, but I had really very little in common. I wasn't familiar with some of the popular culture other than what I read in magazines when I was overseas. And so I had to kind of relearn, and at the same time I was readapting to being permanently disabled. I probably made some silly choices about things, but trying to figure it all out. I went to college in Ohio for a year and a half, and then left Ohio and moved to Vermont. Maybe the mountains remind me of Switzerland, I'm not sure, but I worked as a ski bum for 3 years, and worked at the mountain and learned to ski again on one ski. And so that was very exciting, and just had various jobs so I could ski for free. And then I came back and attended Ringling College. I used to visit my grandmother when I was little. She lived in Sarasota. And so we used to come down and visit her on spring break, not while I was in Switzerland, but before and after. And so I learned about Ringling College, and I really liked that, and attended there for 3 years in interior design, space planning. And that's how I got to Switzerland, or I got to Sarasota. And my mother's still in Switzerland. She still lives there. She's with my half-brother. He lives with her and takes care of her.
Well, thank you, Betsy. We'll get back to pick up the story in a moment from there. Very exciting childhood. At age 9, you had a sharp turn, didn't you? Mary, you were a fan of government growing up all along. It was no surprise, therefore, you went to American University in Washington, D.C., majored in communications and history. Am I accurate that you wanted to go to the nation's capital because of your love for government?
Yeah, you could say that. Growing up, again, in New Jersey, the television was the window on my world, and I saw the President of the United States on TV. I saw the Civil Rights Movement on TV, and it just made sense. I happened to go to Washington with my uncle in 1964, and I remember going by the White House, and I said, "Is that the White House?" Anyway, I think because I was a history major, I wanted to be where the Library of Congress was, and I felt they would have all the resources I would ever need, so it was an easy choice. And so I feel like I'm as American as apple pie. I went to American University, and that led me to a career in television, and where I covered the government. So and looked to the different state governments. Because Washington D.C. is D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. There was always plenty of information coming out of government, and met a lot of government employees. And yes, so I have an affinity for the government and great respect, because people civil servants run our country. They make sure the trains start on time and that the people get their checks when they're supposed to. And I'm just honored to be in a country where civil servants are revered, even if they're not always given the respect they deserve. They're revered. They're essential to running the United States.
Okay, meantime, back in Ohio, there's a teenager trying to find his next chapter. He wound up being a good football player. Rod, were you a linebacker?
No, actually, I'm pretty small. I mean, if you're online, maybe you can't see it, but when you think about football players, you think of big, burly guys, and so you had to be pretty fast. So I actually, at that time, I was living in South Bend, and everyone, I think, associates South Bend with Notre Dame. I was not a Notre Dame fan. Sorry, all of you guys that are Notre Dame fans. I was not a Notre Dame fan, except when Notre Dame beat UCLA in basketball and Austin Carr was there. I thought that was a pretty cool thing. But I got recruited to play football at Ohio State by this guy named Woody Hayes. And I can tell you a lot of stories about Woody Hayes that most of them are probably true that you've heard. Unfortunately, before I could go there, and I wasn't big enough, and I had a lot of speed. I was a running back and a free safety. I was in an accident and I broke my legs. So football was pretty much out of the equation, at least for a few years until you could rehab. So I ended up not going there and not playing football. And I took a couple courses at Ohio State, and I took courses at Kent State, kind of a combination, and I got my blasting license. So when you're 21 or 22 years old, and at the end of every day you push a button and you blow things up, that's like the sexiest job in the world. Like that is so cool, and it's like you go to a bar, like you're a hero, because people just don't get to tell stories like that every day. But it was a job, my uncle owned the company, and it was a job that was really interesting, and it was outside all the time. And if any of you have spent any time in Ohio, you know that winter times in Ohio, it might be really nice today, and tomorrow it's going to be 5 degrees and freezing rain or sleet and ice, and just wasn't a pleasant place to spend all the winters doing that. So it was a dirty job, but it was a great job. It was a great job and a great way to get started. I met my future partner there, who actually worked at the same company I did, and that's where we kind of came up with the idea for, at the time it was Vinyltech, now called PGT. Everybody pretty much knows about PGT Industries here in the area. And we started talking about what we would do next in our career. So pretty interesting end of my teenage years, beginning of my 20s.
You know, Betsy, you breezed past a couple of chapters in your life that I'd be remiss not to go back and talk about. Your parents going their separate ways, and you went from Buffalo to Switzerland practically overnight. At 17, you had the trampoline accident. How did all this change you? Did it cause you to be stronger inside?
Yeah, I think it made me able to switch around, be flexible. Moving to Switzerland was a big jump, and it was my parents getting divorced and my mother remarried. My father also eventually remarried, and then each of them had 2 more children. So our family grew from the 4 of us to 8 children, and fortunately we all get along very well, which is wonderful. But I think acceptance and hopefully understanding. You know, somebody who might be having some kind of difficulty, we only see the surface of it. There might be a lot more underneath that they're having to cope with, and certainly I've seen with some of our people coming back from Afghanistan, the warriors that come back from Afghanistan and Iraq, and they've lost a limb, and they may have up till that age been very capable, and they've been fighting, and suddenly they're in the hospital at Walter Reed a lot of the times, and they have to use a new prosthetic. So I think I've tried to have an understanding for the difficulty that they're going through, and yet still want their dignity to get through life. So it's a difficult transition for anyone going through that.
Well, we've talked about your respective childhoods, we've talked about your adolescence, and now the fun begins, your careers start to take off. And Mary, you got a job at WJLA, the ABC affiliate in Washington. How did you so easily get a position at that major TV station out of college?
Good question. I was lucky. Because I could type, I landed my first media job. I was at my hometown newspaper, the Courier News, and it just happened to be a Gannett newspaper. I then competed when I was in college for a radio internship, and it was sponsored by Avco Embassy. You all remember, you may remember the movie Carnal Knowledge. Well, that was an Avco Embassy production. So I worked there and landed from there a internship, a paid internship at Channel 7 in Washington, D.C. And I started at the bottom as a floor director and worked my way up, ultimately becoming the editorial director. So I wanted to get the handguns off the street, the drunk drivers off the road, and everything in between. It was a wonderful job. And of course, Washington, D.C. is not only local government, but of course, Congress. So there are always stories, and I thoroughly enjoyed the experience. For many years, did a lot of community work in addition to editorials on the air. And when I go back to Washington, D.C. now, people say, did you go to my church? Did you go to my high school? Because doing editorials, I was on 3 days a week, 4 times a day. So I came into their kitchens, their living rooms, and other places. But it was a fantastic job, a great grounding in terms of a career. And basically, I worked my way up the ladder, and that's how I became manager of community affairs and editorials. It was great. I highly recommend it.
Yeah,
Internships are good.
Oh yeah, that's how I began too. And after 35 years on TV, people say to me, "You look familiar," and I say, "I'm your mailman." Sometimes they buy it. Rod, you mentioned PGT, but before you start to talk about the amazing company you and Paul built, you told me that you had 2 very strong influences in your life, 2 separate adults who didn't even know each other, but left a lot of clues for you. Talk more about that.
Yeah, there was a number of people in my life, and what they taught me was really about how important hard work was. And there's a lot of knowledge in the world, and there's a lot of people that apply that knowledge really well, but sometimes because they have the knowledge, they don't work quite as hard. So the application of knowledge and making it into really hard work so that you can accomplish something. I worked for a guy that went bankrupt at 65 years old, and you'd think he would just walk away from it and be done, and he didn't. He built another company, and he paid every single person off that he owed money from his bankruptcy, a completely different company before that. And he never really told me a whole lot. I just watched him. And I think sometimes when you watch people that are relatively quiet and don't say a whole lot, but they live their life and they demonstrate what's right and what you should do, and it really influences, especially when you're a younger person. I think at the time when I knew him, I was 19 or 20 years old. And then after I moved to Florida, I had another guy that I knew lived out in Miami that almost the same story, went bankrupt and started up another window company and paid everybody off. And when you see people that are willing to put in the work in their 60s and past to make sure that they're keeping their word, they're doing everything they said they were going to do, and it's important to sign contracts sometimes, but I think it's more important to shake somebody's hand, tell them this is what you're going to do, and then you do it. And you got to figure out a way to get that done because you made a commitment. And you should be the first person on the phone if things aren't going well to let those people know. Things aren't working as well, here's what we can work on, here's what we can do, and work out a plan for it. But those were 2 huge influences that really taught me the value. Mary talked about learning hard work at an early age. I think I learned at an early age it was fun to play, and I had a lot of brothers and sisters. But I learned in my teenage years and my young 20s how important hard work and dedication and commitment was. And it was a deep learning process.
Great story. Thank you, Rod. You're a humble guy. I hadn't met you before, and I've been reading your resume all week, and we finally met today. And it's like, wait, you're Rod? I thought you'd be this huge, strong, overwhelming personality, but here you are, so humble and kind. It was really one of the reasons I love doing this moderation each year, because the panelists are just such wonderful people, right down the line. Betsy, you were a great skier. You were a wonderful skier, and then somehow you got into rowing as well and became an excellent rower. When did that transition happen for you?
Well, the skiing was, I grew up skiing. Even when I was in Buffalo, my father been a strong skier back in the early days of leather boots and the bear trap bindings. And we just all grew up and skiing and had a place up in Turn, New York. But then when I came to Sarasota, I did a lot of swimming, and that was one of the sports that I tried to keep in shape with. And I lived close to what is now Nathan Benderson Park, and this was before it was highly developed, before the island was there. And there were regattas being run there. The volunteer coordinator happened to be a friend of mine because he owned a store where, in Pioneers, where he sold boots, and my kids would go off to camp in Canada every summer, and I'd go there. And one day I was there, and he was working on this great big chart, and I asked him what that was, and he said, well, we're doing volunteers at Nathan Benderson Park for a rowing regatta. And so I thought, well, I'd be happy to help. He needed some extra help, and he said, sure. So that was sort of my introduction of going over to the park, not knowing where it was going to take me other than just volunteering because they needed help. During one of the regattas, which at that time were run on the far side of, on the west side of where is now the park, there was a person who was up in a cherry picker, one of those big cherry pickers, and he was the announcer. And my job as volunteer at that point was making sure everybody had food and coffee and programs and things like that. And so he came down, I said, would you like some coffee? Would you like some donuts? And he sort of looked me up and down, and he said, you're tall, aren't you? And I said, yeah, I think so. And that was Joe Dobson. And he said, would you be interested in rowing? And I explained that I had a fused left knee and I had permanent disability. And he said, well, you know, we're talking about starting an adaptive rowing program. Would you be interested? And while two of my younger brothers had rowed, I knew nothing about rowing other than it was on the water and I could go see dolphins and manatees, and it sounded like, sure. I said yes. So long story. So we met up with a group and started the adaptive rowing program, and the first, of course, I flipped, and being a swimmer, it was challenging. We rowed out of the intercoastal down off of Blackburn Point, and so he taught me to row there, and in a single, and it was a wider boat than the typical narrow boats. It was an adaptive boat. And at the time, because I can't move my knee, I was in a seat, and all my rowing came from the hips up, and it was all back and arms. And so initially, I'd get this pull and that pull, but stayed with it. It was kind of neat to get out in the water, and I just paddled around the little lagoon close to the dock. And so little by little, it just got, I went to regattas. Over the years, we traveled, and then things got better and improved. And so it just was one of those things that started on a quirky saying yes to as a volunteer. So you never know where it's going to take you.
An amazing story that you were a rower, and out comes the world's best rowing park. Moves in next door to where you were living. What a great
Right.
coincidence that was. Mary, to skip ahead a bit here, I don't want to not mention this, that when you met your husband, your life really began to change. You began to travel the world quite a bit. When was that you met? And tell us what happened next. It's an amazing story.
Yes. So my journey from broadcasting took me to the Council on Foundations in Washington, D.C. It's the umbrella organization for all the major foundations you've heard of and some you haven't heard of. They have members on 5 continents. I was hired to help them with their media program, and I met my future husband. He was running the organization at the time, and an opportunity came up to go to South Africa, and so he invited me to go to handle some of the media there. And we were professional colleagues for a number of years, and then both our personal situations changed, and we began to think differently. He was tapped to become the U.S. ambassador to South Africa, and I tell people he got sworn in one day. We got married one day, he got sworn in the next day, and the next week we were on a plane going to South Africa. And it was one of the most fascinating experiences of my life. We lived there 4 years full time. Part of the year we were in Pretoria, which is the administrative capital. Part of the year we were in Cape Town. They call South Africa a world in one country. I highly recommend it if you've not been. It was just fascinating. We were there during the Mandela era, when the Truth and Reconciliation Commission was formed, and there was a lot of soul searching. I was about to say a new democracy. Their constitution was written at the time. It was just fascinating. I know Rod has been to South Africa and loves it. After that, we decided that we wanted to continue to make a contribution. So my husband set up a leadership program that operated between Duke University in North Carolina and the University of Cape Town. So fall semester we'd be at Duke, and spring semester we'd be at the University of Cape Town. To say that we escaped the winter on the East Coast is to put it mildly, but it was a wonderful life. We were bicontinental for like 14 years. Stumbled upon Sarasota. My husband was invited to speak here at a Selby Foundation luncheon every year. At that time, they used to do a big scholarship luncheon, and they'd hand out scholarships to kids who were going to college. Anyway, we were invited down for that. We came. He said, "You want to go to Sarasota in December?" I said, "Warm weather, no hurricanes, yes." We came, we walked around, we liked it, we met interesting people. We said, you know, if we ever sell our place in Cape Town, we're going to think about Sarasota. And 4 years later, that's what happened. So we have escaped harsh winters, again, living in Sarasota. We like the people here, we like the civic energy here. Folks have made their money and now they want second careers, they want to do something to give back, and it's just a very inviting and welcoming community.
It certainly is a great place to live. We all love it here. Now, Rod, you went on to found and build one of the biggest companies on the Gulf Coast of Florida, PGT. Talk more about your amazing success, and also how did you first find Sarasota in the first place?
You know, it's kind of I got to say a little bit about what Mary just talked about. We took our entire family to South Africa last year, and I have 8-year-old grandchildren, twin girls, and so they were on safari for a little while, and we went in June, July time period, and as you know, in June and July, it's
winter.
It's winter time over there, and it's cold, like, you know, upper 30s, low 40s in the morning. So you got these 8-year-old girls getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, going out on safari, and I'm thinking by day 4 or 5, they're not going to want to do this. But they did, and they loved it. And then we went to Cape Town, which is an amazing city, and we got to go to Table Mountain, crystal clear, cold morning, just absolutely beautiful. And on the flight back home, they looked at me and said, "Grandpa, next time we go, no cities, just safari the whole time. We don't need to see it." So it is an amazing place, and it will change your perspective. We started Vinyl Tech back in 1980, so 40 years ago. Paul and I, and at the time I had no children. We were fairly newlyweds, so we could afford to uproot ourselves from Ohio and come down and move to Sarasota. Paul had been involved in a porch enclosure company before that. So what we started manufacturing was not the windows that you know of today, no hurricane-proof windows, no glass windows, as a matter of fact. We did a porch enclosure product, and we had, you know, just 4 or 5 employees, and we thought, this is going to be great. You know, Paul's got a little family. I'll probably have a family. We're young newlyweds, and we'll have 10 or 12 employees, and we'll live happily ever after. And it just didn't quite work out that way. As you bring in more people and good people, and we were fortunate to hire some really talented people, and we did have some big dreams, and it just kept growing. And as we did porch enclosures, we thought, you know, it'd be really nice because people either use our product. We had a really dominant market share by the late 80s, mid to late 80s. We had a dominant market share, and we thought it would be really great because if they're going to close their porch in, they're either going to use our product or they're going to use a glass window and make it permanent living area. We should sell glass windows. So we started distributing glass windows. Our very first order, and I think it was 1987, was back ordered from the supplier that we ordered it from. at that point in time in our career, in our life at Vinyl Tech, we had never shipped a product late and we had never back ordered. It was a commitment we made. I talked earlier about when you tell someone you're going to do something, you got to find a way to do it. And now all of a sudden we're depending on a supplier that didn't come through and didn't get their windows in time, and we have to back order, and it crushed us. Like it was devastating to think we got to call a customer and tell them they're not going to get their product on time. So within 6 months of that, we were manufacturing our own product so we could control our own fate. And then it grew from there. And then, as I say, Andrew went through in 1992. It devastated Florida. Tongue in cheek, we call it St. Andrew because it made a little difference in our company, and we grew quite a bit as we doubled in size the year after Andrew went through, and then we helped write the code, and things just went great from that point on.
Went very well, I'll say. We're down to our last few minutes, so Betsy, tell us now what you're doing. How often are you on the water these days? Brag about yourself. What's your biggest title you've achieved so far, and what's next for you?
Well, I started rowing when I was 52. I'm now 10 years older. And so I am on the water most mornings, well, a few times a week, depending on the wind and the weather. And I do row still with my coach and those of us of a certain age. And we're in singles mostly, and we do wear masks on the shore. And I was just thinking, it's interesting, I have a brother who lives in Cape Town, South Africa, and he's a rower. And so he teaches the university there and spent many years. He has a family. So in 2015, I was able to go to trials for rowing and made the U.S. rowing team. And it was interesting because when we got to France for Worlds, I was probably older than most of the coaches, and at first I think some of the other rowers thought I was a coach, but they were absolutely wonderfully accepting. And I think the rowing has taken me to meet all kinds of people, and that's been the most exciting thing, is being able to bring others up who might be starting adaptive rowing or thinking of it, and encouraging them and encouraging those who might be older to start a new sport, that you just stay with it and you can do well with it, and it's just a matter of keeping dedicated and keeping a schedule for it.
Right.
And so just keep on rowing.
Thank you, Betsy. I'm going to skip to Rod right now, Mary, and you'll hear why in a moment, because I had foreshadowed a story off the top that I need to get in before we're out of time here. Rod, you had a life-changing incident happened 4 years ago that you've been gracious enough to tell us that you will share. We only have a few minutes, though, so tell us your life-changing incident in 2 minutes or less.
Okay, I'll go fast. Just to prove that I think this panel is called Wit and Wisdom. We don't all have wisdom. I was in the Keys 4 years ago, and I was going out. I wanted to go out on my boat by myself, diving in a storm, and I did. And as I came up out of the water, and I wasn't scuba tank, I was free diving, so I was just diving, 20, 25 feet. I came up out of the water on one dive, and the boat was leaving. And I guess boats are females. It was a she, so she left me. I swam after it, and I wasn't thinking, at the time I thought, no big deal, I'll just swim after it and catch it, because I've done that before in a current or something, but this time it was the wind, and it was like a 30-mile-an-hour wind. And I realized in about 15 or 20 minutes, I'm not going to catch this boat. And I'm 20 miles offshore, and I guess this is it. And then I started thinking, I've done a lot of triathlons and long swims and some ridiculous physical things because I enjoy it. I understand the rowing part. So that was about noon, I spent the rest of that day chasing the boat, and I realized I wasn't going to catch it. And then I knew I had to swim south, and fortunately there was enough wind and waves that I knew which way south was because of the way the waves were going. So I swam toward shore, and the next day, long story short, the next day about noon, so almost 24 hours in the water, a lobster boat was running his trap line, and I started screaming as he got close, and the mate on the back of the boat heard it and threw a life raft and pulled me out of the water, and I made it. So 24 hours in the water, a lot of things go through your mind in that 24 hours, and usually they're not about how much more can I work? It's a lot more about family and stuff like that. So, thank goodness for the athletic background that, makes you mentally strong, and the work ethic to make you mentally strong.
So you had a float,
survived it.
something that kept you buoyant, or were you
I did
flying
not.
on your back?
I had mask, snorkel, and fins.
Oh, my.
Wow. Well, we're
No,
down
sir.
to our last question, and this is a rapid fire one, just a couple sentences each. Why the Pines? And we'll start with Mary. Why is the Pines so successful and so important to our
The
community?
Pines is successful because of the exceptional care. I have a good friend named Sophia LaRusso who sings the Pines' praises. Her mother actually lived at the Pines for 5 years, and she raves about the exceptional care her mom got. And what I've learned over time, my wisdom is, if Sophia LaRusso tells you it's a really good outfit, then you know it's a really good outfit. So, yeah, exceptional care.
I think she's been a panelist of ours too as well along the way. And Betsy, if we could skip over to you now, why do you think the Pines is so important, and why should those watching be generous in donations?
The Pines sort of, it does have a lot of heart. I used to work for a period of time with Circus Sarasota, and I know they've had programs where they go in and help the clients there. But they are able to retain people who, if at some point they outlive their resources, they don't have to worry about trying to find another place to live. They can stay at the Pines. And I just like going to the resale shop as well and dropping things off and donating and knowing it's going to a good cause, which over on Orange Avenue.
Rod, same question, sir.
The Pines fills a niche that is so critically important. I've watched my family, my parents, my grandparents, as they get older, and they worry about whether they're going to be able to afford their health care and how they're going to be able to afford it, and where that's going to come from. And of course, the kids kick in, but the Pines fills that important niche that can keep people from having to be so concerned as they're going through those last stages. That's not what they should be worrying about. They should be worrying about their health, their friendship, and knowing that they have a place like the Pines that they can go to is so critically important.
Very good. Thank you, Mary and Rod and Betsy, and thank you to the Pines. Wonderful organization. I'm so glad they held the event this year, Wit and Wisdom. I'm Ray Collins. Now I'll bring Janet back on for some closing remarks.
Let me say first. Yay, Ray.
Thank you all for joining us today. We are so grateful to our panelists. What amazing inspiration and stories that you gave us today. And as always, thank you, Ray. Job well done. I also want to take this opportunity to thank our Board of Trustees of Pines of Sarasota Foundation and all of the commitment and generosity that you give of time, talent, and resources to this organization. We truly could not do what we do without you, so thank you so very much. I want to thank Terry Arnell, who has led us in this effort. We were not afraid of this challenge, and Terry, amazing job in bringing us virtual to all of you today. I want to thank our Pines of Sarasota Foundation staff who tirelessly work every day to support the mission of Pines of Sarasota. And I want to thank all of you for joining us today. We truly wish that we could now just mingle and share with each other. So I'll be looking forward to getting your emails, and I know that you'll want to congratulate our panelists today as well. I thank you, Mike Ward, for your comments today. Pines of Sarasota truly has a bright future, and we are thrilled you are a part of that. And my final words would be, life is precious, and remember, we are all in this together. Go and do good this afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you next year at Michael's on East for Wit and Wisdom 2021. Thank you for joining us today.